just to reintroduce everybody, we got Charles Skank Insurance, and Ron Ray, Attorney 65 Solutions, T65S.com. I like that because that's like the shortest domain ever. Brian Hess, Advisors Excel, Jeremy Smith, JS Academy, and Western Marketing. Perfect. So everybody give them a round of applause. So when I was trying to put together, some things that I thought would be helpful, I think, part of the conversation we always have is, what other back-end offers are profitable and actually kind of fit well in what we do. And there's a lot of talk, in Medicare gurus and all around about the transition to the annuity or financial conversation for Medicare agents. Most of the time Medicare agents get very transactional and they get the Medicare sale and they move on. And I think that we've amassed a good group here because Brian's at Advisors Excel. Give a little bit about Advisors Excel and, to steal the thunder from it. Advisors Excel did $9 billion in annuities last year. Yeah, between $8 and $9 billion in annuities in 2020. That's pretty nuts. And this guy here, Jeremy Smith, that I just met, has an awesome client appreciation seminar model that is working extremely well. Ron Ray, we followed for a while. He's actually got a course on the Medicare transition to annuity sale process, but he does it very well in the seminar space, leading with Medicare and then transitioning into that sale. And actually, Charles and Landon, his son, actually his dad is here too. They're a 3-generational business, which is pretty cool. But Charles came to Tupelo and gave us a presentation on annuities that, kind of changed the way that we even talk to clients about it. So I have amassed, I will take credit for this, the dream team to talk about annuities right here. This is a great combination of people from different, they're all doing things different ways, but they're all really good ways. And they're all very heavily involved in the Medicare space too, not just annuities. So anyway, without further ado, we put out a post in Medicare Gurus and asked for some help coming up with questions for this annuity panel. And by far and large, the first question that came up, or the number one question that people kind of kept making further iterations of, was how do you transition to from the Medicare conversation to the annuity conversation, which can be a broad concept. But I want to ask each person their interpretation of how to transition from the Medicare conversation to the annuity conversation, when to do that in the relationship, whether it's right away or over time and all that, and see what we get. I bet we get similar, overlapping, yet different answers. So Charles, we'll let you start out, man. How do you transition that conversation?
Thank you, Justin. I tell people, if you're just a Medicare agent, that's one thing. But if you are a retirement specialist, then you have access to other areas of their retirement life. And one thing I say is that we are your next HR person. When you go to the factory, you have an HR person that gives you your dental, vision, hearing, medical, retirement income, benefits, all that stuff. But you leave the factory and that person's gone. That HR person's no longer there. But we fill the role of that HR person. We help you with dental, vision, medical, retirement income, life insurance. We help you with all those things that HR person did. And so that gives you permission to talk about 401k and to talk about what how they're going to make it and what kind of income they need and if their money's safe or not. Another way I differentiate is that we're in a safety-based world. The stock market is a risk and fee-based world. We only deal with fixed products. So I say that we are in a safety-based world. I can make you one promise, and that is that you won't lose money. And the stockbroker can only make you one promise, and that is that you will lose money. And so we differentiate ourselves in what we're offering, fixed-based products where you don't lose any money. We believe as you get older, your money should get safer. So after we built a bridge with Medicare, and they have a lot of confidence in us, and we're like the hero because they have all these big questions about Medicare, then I say, now, we also help with retirement income. What's your situation? What's your 401k doing? You're leaving the factories, your 401k have to leave too. Here's some options that we have. And so while you're the big hero in their mind, step in and talk about money, and maybe you can be the hero 2 times.
Perfect.
Yeah, you just got to go out there and do the deal.
I'm going to echo what Ron said, is just do the deal.
Any more questions?
Exactly what Charlie just said is you got to, at some point, say that I'm going to mature my practice and I'm no longer going to be just a Medicare salesman, Medicare salesperson. I'm going to be now a holistic retirement planner. I'm going to help my clients in a holistic manner. So I was going to ask a question here is, as a Medicare agent, what is your job? What do you do for your clients? Somebody just shout out with
Protect them.
protect them. Very good. Okay. You protect what?
Their money.
Their money, right? If people aren't worried about protecting their money, they don't need insurance. Right? That's the only reason to have insurance, is to transfer risk and protect their assets, right? Medicare is only one piece of it. It's a big piece, but it's only one piece. So you've really got to expand and provide all of those services. Now, to answer the question of how do you make that transition, it's right in the beginning. When you get somebody on the phone or you're talking to somebody, you've got to tell them, look, I'm not just a Medicare supplement salesman. I'm a holistic retirement planner. And what I actually do is I protect your assets. And so I take these 4 pillars of retirement: healthcare, long-term care, life and legacy, and retirement income, and I bring those all 4 together under one master plan for you. And then you're setting them up from the very beginning so that they're going to expect you to help them with those things, or at least ask questions about them. Okay? And so the way we start our process, everybody that comes in when they're turning 65, they don't do anything with me before we go through a full fact finder. And so if you are just contacting a client or a prospect and asking what's your zip code and what's your age and selling them a Medicare product, you're not doing the best job that you can for them, and you're not doing the best job that you can for you. It's transactional. Exactly what Justin said. It's not a relational relationship. Right? Is that redundant?
I think for that transition, it all starts with kind of like what Ron said. It starts with not being the Medicare person, right? You can kind of box yourself in by saying I'm the Medicare person. I help you with Medicare, right? You know anybody that needs Medicare? I'll do that. I don't do any of those other things. And I think agents tend to get, or they can get kind of afraid or just scared about all the other things. And so looking at it from a standpoint that says, hey, I'm going to help you, yes, with your health insurance, but that's one piece of what we're going to do. And you use, we have, and we're making it available, I think Justin's sending it in the Facebook group. So if you're not in, get in the Medicare Con Facebook group. The fact finder that we provide to our advisors is going to be in there that you guys can use. And it needs to be used with every single client. I was just talking to a couple guys out there before coming in here about it, and it is, even if you're not going into the annuity pitch after every Medicare sale, you need to use the fact finder with every appointment, because what you're doing is building a database. And if you look at what happened this last year with COVID, I don't know how many of you guys were doing in-person events or in-person meetings, all that got shut down, right? Our advisors that succeeded, we had a big month in April, which I think everybody else had a down month. Just in April, we did over $1 billion in annuity sales. And that was because our advisors had a database and they had fact finders completed, which means they can go back to all those people that they may not have gotten the first time or the second time. They may have come to an event, but they didn't get all their business. They had those resources to go back to. So if you're not using a fact finder, that's step one, is present yourself as the person that's going to provide solutions in all of their retirement planning, but you've got to be then able to document what opportunities there are for you to go back to later on. If you don't have to get all of them right out the gate, right? Take care of their Medicare piece, but always have that information that you can go back to and build that list.
Man, I got in the wrong seat. Yeah, what they said. The fact finder's the answer.
And I'm going to broaden, because I'm fourth and they've already said a bunch of stuff, I'm going to broaden this question up just a little bit. What's the hardest thing in our entire business? What's the hardest thing we have to do every day, every month? It's find business, find and get in front of a qualified prospect. I don't know what, I'm not going to do the show of hands, but I'm guessing there's a large percentage of people in here that just sell Medicare or just sell a product, okay? And if you list out all the different things that you could sell, from dental, hearing and vision, the life insurance, long-term care, annuities, all the different things that you can sell with your license, annuities from a Medicare supplement sale person may be the farthest stretch. That may be the scariest hill to climb, because they think they've got to understand money so much. I promise that hill's not as hard to climb as you think it is. But the point I want to make is that it doesn't matter if it's annuities or anything else. The hardest thing we have to do is get in front of a qualified person. So when we do that, you are shooting yourself in the foot if the only thing you can do is sell them one thing. There's a ton of products that you can offer, and a learning curve for all of them. Start just adding to your repertoire, okay? Start adding to the products that you offer. The fact finder is the answer to this question, and I tell everybody here, even if you're sitting here saying to yourself, I'm never going to sell anything else. This is what I do. I'm really good at it. I'm a machine. That's all I'm ever going to sell. I'd still tell you, add a fact finder into your sales process. It'll first of all, it'll up your closing percentage because it looks like you've been there before. And you never know. You never know in 2 years or 5 years from now, when maybe all of a sudden you do want to start selling dental, hearing, and vision, or annuities, or life insurance, or anything under the sun. The most painful thing you'll ever have to do when you get there is look back and say, man, I wish I had taken a fact finder in every client for the last 5 years. I promise it won't hurt you, and it's probably the best advice I could probably give about anything we talk about the rest of the day or week. If you're not using a fact finder, do it. There will be more products probably in your repertoire as your company grows.
Perfect. Awesome. So yeah, like what you're saying there, years ago, I came across a podcast where the guy was saying that you should grade your clients. And he said he didn't grade them like good, bad, shitty, terrible, awful. He said grade them like he had a system where he would grade them like diamond, ruby, pearl. So if anybody looked at it, it would be like, oh, I'm a pearl. But pearl was kind of like the lower end one. But what he was doing was having a quick way to sort through his CRM or his list to pull those people. And you can actually, a lot of you that are using CRMs, most people I've found that we used the CRM for years before we really started getting a lot out of it, because now we're really pushing information into it. And we've been able to, like, the past couple of months, kind of cut our advertising budget in half and just go back through our book and really kind of harvest a lot of business. Found out stuff fell off that we didn't even realize had fallen off, all kinds of stuff. But having that really, really dedicated CRM, which is a fact finder. You can use a paper fact finder and then transcribe it into CRM, or if you're like in an office setting like we are, or using your laptop, you can even have a digital fact finder where you're doing it. But to store all that information and be able to go back is very, very powerful. And especially, when he said that in that podcast, like being able to go, I was like, man, let me go back and look at our clients and see how I can do that. And I'm like, there's no way. I just have a list of people. I don't know which one's a pearl or, a turd or whatever in this list. So it's a great point to be able to do that. Okay, so Stephen, keep me on task here. If you're not in Medicare Con, the group on there, the Facebook group, get in it. If you are in it, keep checking it for resources, because we dropped Brian's fact finder in there. Some of these guys may share some things in there, and all the slideshows are being in there, so that if you have trouble seeing anything that's up here, you can continue to follow along from your screen. I'm giving you permission to play with your phone. So, all right. So to try to piggyback off of that, in the annuity presentation, another question that people kept asking was, if you're leading with Medicare, because it is a great pain point to lead with to get to annuity clients or any other clientele, what is a realistic percentage of your clients, a 1 in 6 or a 1 in 10 or whatever kind of figure that you could at least estimate over time that you'd be able to transition into a financial client? And I want to, hear, some different answers. So now we'll go back this way. So now you're in the best seat, Jeremy.
Yeah, but I don't know the answer.
Oh.
I think the answer to that question is going to vary a ton. I mean, where you live, are they Medicare clients? Are they Medicare Advantage clients? Are they 65? Are they 80? There's a huge variance in that. I don't really know how to throw you a percentage on it, but let me say two things. One, I'm going to follow up something that I wish I had said there a second ago, because when they asked the question of how do you transition to that, we all said a fact finder, and that's the tool that you use. But I imagine there's a good percentage of those people that asked that question that they really meant, how do you talk your way into, now I'm talking to an annuity? I got a fact finder, great, I've got the information. Just to spell this out for you, if you use the fact finder and you ask those questions, your clients are automatically going to know that you do other things just than Medicare. The business will fall to you. You don't have to go out and try and find it. It's just the mere fact that you ask some questions on it will make them say, why are we asking this, maybe? And you can say, well, I want you to know I offer other products than just Medicare. But the annuities, long-term care, the life insurance, all those other products, they'll fall on your lap just by asking. You won't have to have a printed out spiel on how to do it. The fact finder will take care of that for you. As far as the conversion, as far as your Medicare clients, it's a large number. I don't know exactly what it is for each individual person. What Justin talked about a little bit ago with one of the things I specialize in is teaching people how to do client appreciation seminars. So they bring in 25 or 30 of your clients, you buy them dinner. My presentation is you're given a 10, 12-minute little spiel about all the different products that we can offer, just to let them know, thank you for being a client, and let you know what else I can do. Of those Medicare clients, if we had 25 clients in a room, on average, we'll write $1 million every seminar we do. So one show, 25 people, you're going to write about $1 million worth of annuities. As far as how many of those clients, percentage-wise, doesn't really matter. The volume, I can tell you, is probably about 4x when it comes to annuities.
So, for the people that don't know, what would stacking 25 people in a room and writing $1 million annuities on average net a street level agent for annuities?
And again, it depends a little bit what state you're in, but you're probably talking about $60,000 to $70,000.
So I think everybody could use that,
That's just
once a month.
That's just the annuities. There are other products that go with it too.
Right.
So yeah, that was eye-opening for me. We're actually looking to get some more information from Jeremy on that for sure. So Brian, backing up or just elaborate on whatever you're thinking there.
Yeah, I would say how many of your clients have a 401k, because that's an opportunity, right? I won't give an exact percentage, but how many of them have 401k? And then the other area, which is I talk with a lot of Medicare guys that want to get into the annuity side too. And if you don't want to get into some of the bigger, more complex products, you can start off with just guaranteed annuities. How many of them have $5,000 in a CD? Okay, annuity rate's going to be 3.4%. The bank is giving them half. That's easy, right?
Yeah, that's actually how I got into annuities initially. It took me a while to do an index annuity, but a MIGA was just like an obvious no-brainer for a lot of people. So it was a great way to transition and then get more comfortable with those. So it's a really good point, Brian.
So that's a question I've been thinking about lately. And I think I've kind of come up with this formula. And I don't have any science behind it, but we don't really need science these days. We just make decisions.
Math is easy, right, Pete?
Math is easy. I think that an agent, if you're coming in and setting yourself up properly in the beginning with a new client, you should be able to pull $500,000 to $1 million out of every 100 new Medicare clients that you get. So, I mean, you're talking about, $40,000 to $70,000 in income for every new 100 Medicare clients.
Awesome.
We started doing financial seminars in 2013 and go to steakhouse, serve a steak, do like a meal. We send out postcards to invite people there, and Medicare was a side thing. And then in 2019, seminars slowed down, and then COVID hit and they stopped. And so Medicare became our number one thing, and annuities were on the side. So a lot of you are going maybe from Medicare's your main thing to getting annuities on the side. We're doing the opposite. Okay, we're going from annuities being number one to Medicare being number one and getting annuities. And so I really just don't have a number to give. But one thing I would say is when you go to the grocery store to get a cake mix, they have them all lined up there. What do you see on the box? Just a piece of cake, right? You just want a piece of cake. Now, what if they had all the boxes turned around and all you saw was this little writing? Well, would anybody buy any cake then? Right? No. So, too many times with annuities, we make them really complex. And we say, oh, you need an illustration. You need to talk about caps. You talk about all these types of things. And people's eyes start glazing over, right? And so what they want to know is my money safe? Is it growing at a reasonable rate of return? And do I have access to it? I get all those three things. That's the cake I want right there. I want that. We don't have to give them all those ingredients and all the details and overwhelm them where they can't even make their decision. So I was just thinking about what I would elaborate on. That would be with that.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I wanted to see if there's any more live questions about annuities. And before I do that, can I get a show of hands of who in the room has written an annuity? Raise your hand. Who in the room has not written an annuity yet? Who in the room would like to write more annuities? Okay, so I guess it's a good topic to talk about. So, all right, so I want to open it up for a few questions because some of the questions we got were super generalized into the location that we just talked about, which I think these guys did a great job elaborating on. Who has a question? Right here.
So for somebody that knows nothing about annuities, what would be your first step to start learning about it?
Start here.
Keep it simple. An annuity is simply a savings account managed by an insurance company. CD is a savings account managed by a bank. A lot of times people have mysterious ideas of what an annuity is. It's like these payments that keep going, or if I die, do I get my money? All those types of things. So get cleared up on how that works. Get with the marketer. I only recommend a couple of different annuities, like a MIGA, multi-year guarantee annuity, and a fixed index annuity. I don't recommend to have a whole bunch have one or two that you really work with that you know that works.
Yeah, same. Keep it simple, but more importantly, don't sell annuities. Right? You want to sell more annuities? Stop selling annuities. Right? What you want to sell is a concept. Do they want safety? Do they want a reasonable rate of return? And do they want simplicity? That's it.
Excellent.
And that way, you don't have to worry about what product, what are the rates, what are the caps, does it have participation rate, does it have any fees, does it have a rider? Let this guy help you with that. Say, hey, here's my case, here's my fact finder, what product do I go with? And don't ask me, don't send me a Facebook message later saying, hey, what's your favorite product? I don't know. You're in Massachusetts, they're all different. And they're different, each one is different in every state. It's you sell the concept and you let the experts give you the product to fill that concept.
I like to say fix the problem, don't send them a product, right? What's the problem they're trying to fix? Is it are they wanting to avoid taxes? Do they want to create a legacy? Are they trying to make sure they have income for life? That's the problem we're talking about. It doesn't matter what the product is. So whether it's a MIGA, it's a FIA, it doesn't matter, right? It's what are we trying to do for the client? Be on their team, not the carrier of the products. We don't care about that stuff. To kind of go back to your question, how do you learn more? 2 or 3 people already said today, pay for what you don't know, right? I know there's probably a dozen people in here that have an annuity lesson or class. Ron Ray, I know, has a great one. I know there's also people in the room here that I'm sure if you pick out a couple people, Pete knows a lot about annuities, any of us up here on stage, we'd love to talk to you about, kind of getting started and what that process looks like.
Yeah, that's the answer. I mean, if you were gonna
decide today you want to go get into bodybuilding and you've never seen the inside of a gym before, what would be the first thing you do? Go get a trainer. There's a million of them out there. I've been a national business coach for about 8 years now, and I thought that I was going to be the only one. I didn't know they existed and then I kind of worked out. They're everywhere. There's all kinds of people that are good at it. They know what they're talking about. They want to teach. You know, it's not like a plug, but it's free. I've got training videos. I think there's 50 of them on YouTube channel, Jeremy Smith Academy, that you can watch all of those. Say the same thing Cody said this morning. I don't care if it's me or him or any of these guys. There's a bunch of people out there. Go find somebody that knows more than you and follow them. Follow them. Get them to work with you. And when you've learned everything out of them, go find who taught them. Just the growth phase.
I brought this up here, then I forgot to say it. This book right here, if you want to know about annuities in simple form that you can regurgitate. Stress-Free Retirement by Patrick Kelly. I happen to have a few copies here.
Write that down.
That the first 10 people to sign up for the class get a copy of it. But more importantly, it's not for you. Use this for your clients. I give this to clients every week. And you know what I do? I go through and I circle the chapters that I want them to read. And this is like a 30,000-foot view of how a fixed indexed annuity works with a rider, what it does, what it doesn't do, that they can understand. This book right here sells more annuities than I can. Because what I'll do is in that first or second appointment, I'll sell them on a concept, or these are things you want: safety, reasonable rate of return, accessibility, simplicity. Okay, let's set another appointment. I'm gonna get a plan together for you. By the way, here's a book. I want you to read this. You don't have to read the whole thing, just read the chapters that I've marked here. There's a bunch of chapters all about how they work. The last one's the best one, how to break up with your advisor. There's somebody out there as asking right now, how do I address that question? When they've got another financial advisor over here, how do I drive that wedge? Answer is, don't.
Ron, who's the author?
Patrick Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, so to summarize what you guys were saying about, so I can kind of, tear back into that question. MIGA, FIA, leave it there, find somebody that knows about it, digest content, and then find a marketer that specializes in annuities. You may already have one, and then let them help you with the back end side of it and begin to, just make it simple, find the problem, solve the problem. So, it's all, most of the time we overthink it. We think how complicating this topic is of annuities, because they can get really complex when you start thinking about all the stuff, but you're never going to we're not teaching the client how to sell the things. And even then they wouldn't need to know all the stuff that you want to know. So, you want to understand some back end support of it. But the great thing about, we have an annuity FMO. It's his FMO. And Brian, there's a plug for Brian. Advisors Excel, yeah, they did a lot of annuities. I'll give them a plug. They're great, actually. They're really, really sharp. But there's other people too. Western Marketing does a good job with it. IFG does a good job with their annuity side. There's a lot of people that have hired people specifically to be that product knowledge expert. We sell annuities, and every time I'm learning about new concepts in the process because I'm trying to digest the problem, go to the expert that's like the real expert, because there's these people, I can't remember what show it is, but they're the the number cruncher people. That's not me. You're a salesperson. You're probably not really good at that. Some of you may be, but when you get into the really, strategy, actuarial stuff, you have people and resources that are out there, businesses that are formed around being that person for you. So let them do that side of it so that you can put it into terms that the client is comfortable with. And as long as you're checking all the right boxes, transition that into a sale. And then you're happy, they're happy, everybody wins. So does Advisors Excel and Western Marketing and the people that helps you sell it as well. So, EJ.
So are you leaving that, so you do the consult, or you leave that with them? Are you just letting them keep it, or you come back and take it and look back with it?
No, I slap a sticker on the front of it with my company name and information, and they keep it. And I say, by the way, if you like it, pass it on to a friend.
So well, that's interesting because
Smart.
part of me thought first, well, why not write a book yourself? But the cool thing about it is that could come across bias. You can be like, this guy's a real expert, who I learned from. You're edifying that person, but then just putting your contact information on it. They're learning from him and then coming back to you to help with it.
Right.
So I think it's genius.
And I'm not the only one that knows about this. Most of your annuity FMOs will give you these.
So I was gonna say my second question behind that, we call Patrick Kelly, because we're gonna have to get a lot of books from for a good discount.
Yeah. So EJ asked if we can call Patrick Kelly and get a discount if we buy the book in bulk. But, cost of doing business.
The only gripe I have about it is they don't have it in Braille. And I've got a prospect I'm working with right now that's blind.
You got to go over and read it to him. You should record the audio version. And then you could sell us the audio version. Okay, so any other questions we can ask right here? All right, we got one back here in the back. I see you. You're waving. Stand up. Is that Jackie? All right, Jackie, yell.
Hi. So,
Louder.
hey. Question. Okay, so for those that did produce annuities face to face and had success with it, and then went virtual, maybe around Corona, before Corona, or even those that have been virtual, what do you suggest where to start to get back into plugging into, selling annuities, but you're virtual now and it's a whole different landscape than when you were face to face?
Okay, so in context, the question is how to transition to or start up selling annuities virtually?
Make a long story short, yes.
Yeah, okay. How many people have sold annuities virtually? All right, so we got a handful. That's a much smaller group. There's like a podcast that actually, I can't remember the name of it. I used to listen to it. Some guys that's all they do and they do very well. Any of you guys have insight on virtual annuity selling? I'm sure Advisors Excel does.
Yeah, the first thing is still going to go back to using that fact finder when you're going, if it's over the phone, using that fact finder. A great way to do that too, and I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it, but a great way to do it too is if you're producing content, which if any of the people up here would tell you to be doing, if you're producing content, you can use those resources. Hey, I've actually got a YouTube video that explains what you should do or options when you retire, what you can do with 401k, how an annuity works, and use those resources to kind of supplement that conversation. But it starts with the fact finder and identifying what that problem is, and then it's just like selling anything else. I may not be in person where I get to sit down right here and do it with you, but I can still do the same process. It just might be a little bit longer over the phone. But if you're building trust, you're getting stuff to them on time, having a sharp, clean presentation to them, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, so I just say this to them, virtual selling, like we talk about cross-selling. How many people have watched Bundling Blitz or our bundling course? So we talk about it in person and telephonically or virtually. And even with that, we have success with it virtually, but it is a little bit lower of a success rate. Some people can tend to get more transactional, and it is a little bit more difficult to build the long-term relationship virtually. But just bringing it up and presenting it the same way that you would in person can still, warrant the same response or the same need with it. So I think if you exercise that you are educating them well on the Medicare side, that you're knowledgeable about something, you become an expert. Then if you pivot to the second thing, it's easier for them to believe that you're an expert on something else once they know about the first thing. So I don't think it's a whole lot of difference, maybe with a slightly lower success rate at it, but not enough lower to not try it. So I'll let you elaborate some more as well.
I'll just say one thing. I've got a couple agents that I know that do a lot of business selling annuities all virtually. And everybody here, if you're here, you're probably an ace salesperson. You probably just are. You can probably walk into a home. Most of your appointments probably look the same, but you can use your wit, charm, and personality and kind of freelance, and the appointment takes you where it takes you, and you don't come out wherever you want to be at the other end at the right time. When you're doing virtual sales, especially virtual sales with annuities or finances, your step process and your sales process they got to be with a rifle, not a shotgun. You got to know exactly what steps you're going on. Take the time to write out your process, the steps you're going to say in the right order. You've got to be able to tell them exactly what to expect going forward, walk them through the application process and what happens after that. You just got to be a lot more dialed in. You can't do quite as much of the wing it that we may do in a face-to-face appointment. When you're doing it virtually, everything's got to be dialed in. You know exactly where you're going, and so does the client.
Do you offer this? I'm sorry, but do you offer this? Your FMO offers virtual training or to do all this?
She's saying, do any of you offer virtual training specifically?
That's all I do.
Oh,
Specifically about selling virtually, is that what your question is?
no, specifically selling virtually,
Specifically selling virtually, yeah.
that has things set up so I don't have to reinvent the wheel and teach myself.
I think it's almost like the product knowledge question. It may be getting to where it's hard to get outside your own head, that it's actually the same conversation, just more precise and less room for, individual, like jargon in between. And it also, it's not any different conversation. There's not like any kind of system that I think that helps. A lot of people get really hung up on like Zoom calls and, being face to face and doing like something that helps with that. Most of the time, if you're selling an annuity, and especially when you get on the turning 65s now, if you're worried about e-signature processes, the majority of them are very friendly with like Firelight and email signatures and things. So I don't think selling virtually, there are as many limitations as we may think there are. There's not like a specific system or anything. It's just about making the same pitch and knowing that, it might close 20% less than it did in person because you weren't able to remind them of their grandson or granddaughter. So that's my answer.
The last thing I'll say on that too is I assume we're not talking about developing a marketing system just to go sell annuities on the phone. We're talking about taking your clients that are already your clients and selling them. Well, the first one's a lot harder.
Yeah, marketing.
Someone that doesn't know you, that trust factor's tough on that.
Well, that's what I want to do though.
Yeah, that's hard. I'm not saying, I know agents that make a lot of money doing that. Boy, you gotta be aces to cold call somebody up and do, but again, the answer is still, I still think it's the same answer is, if you're gonna get good at it, you're gonna be so successful at that, it's about the process, being dialed in, exactly knowing what you're gonna do.
Perfect. All right. Go ahead, Ron.
Sorry, anxious to answer that question. So, did anybody see Cody's interview with a guy named Ryan Palomini? Right, so Ryan Palomini writes $10-12 million, probably $20 million this year, all virtually. And so he was selling a class too, and I bought it because I thought, well, I want to learn his secret. The secret is there's no secret. His process is exactly the same virtually as it was in person. And so as long as you've got a process, just like Jeremy says, and it's tight, it's fun. So I want you to think about this too. Think about guys like Jordan Belfort. How many millions of dollars did he make selling financial products over the phone? He didn't have Zoom, right? And he went to prison, but that's another story. But what about, hey, another movie, I forget the character's name, but Will Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness. Those stockbrokers, they sold billions and billions of dollars of financial products without never seeing somebody. It was all over the phone. So it's all in your head. Quit worrying about it and do it.
I would say put your beliefs out there. I believe that as we get older, our money should get safer. I believe that as we get older, the more important is the return of my money than the return on my money. And when you put your beliefs out there, people will start resonating with you. It's like, oh, I want that. Yeah, can you help me? You believe what I believe. And so on the phone, you have to amplify it a little more than in person, a lot more. But amplify that part of yourself, like, here's what I believe when it comes to retirement money. That safety first, reasonable rate of return, and keeping it simple. And people will start falling into line, the people that are right for you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Stephen, how are we on time? 15 minutes. So, any more questions? We got one way in the back there. Go ahead. Yell it.
Does the rate of the rate go up with the
Okay. I'm gonna try to avoid a product specific question because we get way into the weeds on it. That would definitely depend on the product, and typically it would depend on a lot of different factors. So I'm gonna, well, yeah, talk to one of them afterwards to that gets a little bit in the weeds. So any more marketing or sales related annuity questions? Right here.
What tools do you guys use to quote and do the enrollments? Is it directly through the carrier sites? Is it something like on the Medicare where a lot are kind of bundled where you can shop all of the different products?
So I don't do any illustrations. That's the back of the box. Most of the people don't want the back of the box. I tell them it's going to get 3 to 6% over time with a FIA, and with a fixed, here's your rate. 2.85 is about the best going rate right now that I'm aware of for 5 years. And so there's enrollment tools to go along with that.
Yeah, you know, again, I try to let my marketers do the case prep for me. There are a couple of tools that you can use, but they're like Sunfire, they're very expensive, so get them through your FMO, like the Annuity Rate Watch. But I don't recommend you do that. And I don't like the illustrations either. An illustration confuses people, and a confused mind will always say no. So the only time I ever use an illustration is if they already know enough about annuities, and they come in and say, I want the best guaranteed income rate. And then I show them,
Yeah.
wider illustrations guaranteed.
Like Charles said earlier, you keep it simple. You can get down to a couple of core products. So when we initially onboarded our annuity side with our Advisors Excel a while back, they sat down with us and broke down our market and told us what the kind of go-to products in the area were, and they kind of limited it down to, like, if this is the goal, this is about the best product right now. If this is the goal, this is the better. So we got it down to there was 2 or 3. So I could do a conceptual pitch. You know, anybody know the difference of like a conceptual pitch versus of getting in the weeds? An annuity close typically isn't something like Medicare where you can close in the same appointment. You might have to gather the information, sell them conceptually, set up a follow-up appointment, and in between time you get the details, but you still don't necessarily get a fortune of details. Now, if it's a MIGA, you could probably do it right away because it's pretty cut and dry. But if you get into index, you know, sometimes you have to set up those follow-up appointments because then they have to bring in their statements, all that kind of stuff. Unless you're in the house, you know, like that's a whole different scenario. But, you know, that's what he said earlier, having a couple of core products that you're going with and having a marketer that lets you know that, hey, there's this new product you might consider, and you talk about it and you decide if you want to swap it out with something else or add it into it there. But as far as having to use a tool to search through it, it's not as much like rate shopping with, you know, med subs and drug plans where it changes based on a lot of different variables. You can kind of narrow it down to right now for the foreseeable future, I'm going to use 2 to 3 products for everybody. And if they don't want those products, I'm probably not going to go fishing for it too much more because those are the ones that I believe are the best. Go ahead, Leslie.
Okay, I'll probably never get this opportunity again, and this is a kind of a simple question.
You're right here.
Sorry, I meant to talk to all 4 of you at one time. So, just out of curiosity, I'd like to hear from you guys. When you're not product question, how often do you mix up the strategies for people in fixed index annuities, and what are they? What are your favorites, and why? I kind of want to know, like, how often you use the fixed, and do you put more? Yeah, like when you use the cap, blah blah blah. And it's kind of a little bit in depth, but I'm very curious to hear about it.
It's halfway in between in the weeds and not. So I'm gonna let it slide. So index versus MIGA, you know, when index versus MIGA, capped versus
In the FIA.
In the FIA, yeah.
And I'll give everyone a chance. It's going to depend on what, again, not the product, the problem, right? What is the purpose of that money, and where is it coming from? And that's going to help us determine if there's going to be changes to it and what those would be. My answer to it is it's going to depend on the problem.
Also, I just like to keep it simple. So they all know what the S&P 500 is, or at least they've heard of it. So if I can give them an S&P index and, you know, maybe something that's volatility controlled or whatever. But again, I don't really know. I'm relying on FMO guy, to tell me. Now, if he comes back with some crazy hybrid index that I've never heard of, I'm gonna say, yeah, let's not do that one. Because I don't know anything about it. The client's not gonna understand it. I could just tell him, hey, this is the S&P 500. It's got a 50% participation rate. You're gonna get, that's not real right now, but you're gonna get half whatever the S&P 500 makes with no downside. Does that sound good? Great. So keep it simple. Don't mix them up too much, but yeah, just really simple.
Yeah, when you get into index annuities, for those of you who don't know, there's caps and indexes and there's all these different ways to allocate the funds. And the way we've always done it is the marketer at the beginning of the training tells us what the highest average rate of return strategy is, and we go 100% into that unless we do some into like a fixed account or something. But it's always the same. I don't sit there and be like, what's your tolerance? Let's look at the morning star. Like, I don't know what's gonna, and I don't think anybody knows which one's gonna return the highest either. I think that's all a gamble. That's what the stockbrokers are in the gambling world. I'm not. I'm like, I know the S&P 500, like he said, plus they know that, I'm just telling them like, this is, over time always going to go up, but you're not going to have to worry about dips. There's no downside. You're going to get to participate in it without the downside. And that's probably, all I'm going to say.
I will say one thing. I will say one thing on that is I'm not using monthly sums anymore, monthly points of point. The volatility is back, and I don't think it's going any away. So, from 2008 to 2018, say like an Allianz with a monthly point to point with a 1.5% cap was really awesome. But what you saw last year was every month capped out, and then you had a -30 in February. So I would stay away from monthlies, but everything else, as long as it's simple, you can understand it, your marketer's behind it, it's good enough.
I'll just say this, about 5 years ago, I sold a whole bunch of annuities with this one company that had 110, 120% participation rate, and it looked sexy, and it was super sellable, and I wrote a whole bunch of clients on it, and then they got the renewal 2 years later, and it was 25%. And so I guess my point is I don't really play a lot around mixing up the allocations, but I'll tell you that picking the right companies that have got history of not doing that story I just said is way more important than caring about what the allocations are inside the product. Because you can change the allocation every year or two, right? That's not a big deal. You can't change the company every year or two.
Pete loves talking about allocation of funds, and if anybody wants to really get in the weeds, he's not very good at sales, but if you really want to know like numbers and stuff, he loves that. So, Tatiana.
And I would like to do maybe an appreciation dinner with the client. You guys recommending that I do an audit on everybody, and then only invite a supplemental, or if they send to everybody and they invite supplemental and advantage. I'm concerned about somebody throwing a tip out there to the insurance company saying that I might be selling any products, and then I have somebody showing up from the insurance company saying that because I want to get what you said before, kind of a small church version of what I sell, by the way I also sell annuities, and then that might be misinterpreted as I'm trying to do the dinner so that they can buy annuities from me to an advantage client.
I'm going to try to paraphrase the question. You want to know if, who are the pearls and the diamonds, and how to invite them to a client appreciation dinner without being a jerk or. Yeah, there's people with money that get Medicare Advantage plans. I would simplify this, really simplified. Once they're your client, you can invite them to whatever you want to. There's no compliance involved from a carrier at all. Like if you're inviting them to an appreciation, there's not a carrier that's going to be like, oh, you're picking and choosing based on who you think is. There's no compliance with that. You can do that all you want to. It's not illegal. So nobody's ever there's never going to do it. But I do think that there's a question within there for Jeremy, who does client appreciation seminars, about, the strategy of who you would invite, how many you would invite, how you would invite, something as much as he's willing to share on that.
Yeah, I'll just rattle off a couple. First of all, I think the perfect size is 25 people. You get more than that, it's sometimes hard to control the room. You get less than that, and it seems like it's not that big of a deal. You're not that important. It's just a good number. I always think that's a good number, about 25. As far as who in your database you're going to go through, yeah, there's things you can do. You know the nice neighborhoods that might have more money, or the zip codes and stuff like that. But I would tell you to be cautious about that. I would tell you to, you're insurance people. How many of you walk into a home and said, man, these people don't have any money. Look at this house. And walk in and they got more money than everybody else you've been to all week. Don't judge them. Just bring them on. Trust me, it's do the fact finder, cross-sell, do client appreciation, whatever you do it all with everybody, and it'll sort itself out in the end. It's the only way to do it, and you'll be surprised more times than not.
And so when you, I'm just curious, when you're trying to get 25 people there, how many do you invite, or do you kind of go through one by one and invite them and see if they're interested until you get 25 RSVPs?
Typically what we'll do is we'll send out 100 mailers, and we'll have 2 shows. So we'll have one Tuesday night and the following week on Wednesday night. And that normally will fill those 2 shows. And if you get a really good response, then you add a date. But normally, 75 to 125, somewhere in there, mailers. Then you follow up with phone calls, put 1-2 show dates on it, and you add.
So you're saying your clients that are paying for Medicare supplements that aren't using them and they're mad about it want to get you to pay for a free steak dinner. Okay, cool. That's the trick. So you got to feed them.
Yeah, and don't you? I'm not saying you got to go to Ruth Chris, but don't go to Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, like an Outback.
Yeah. You got to have a closed off room where
Apple.
you got control of the audience and make it a treat. You're trying to say thank you to them for being a client.
Yeah.
Not to sell them something.
Well, the interesting thing about that too, as we were talking out there earlier, is the unintended, or maybe intended, if you're thinking about it, consequences. You're developing client loyalty. You get referrals. So even the people that aren't saying, "Oh, thanks for the steak. I have $1 million. I want you to put it into an indexed annuity." Even the people that are just saying, "I don't have any money, but I really appreciate the steak dinner," are going to say, when somebody says, "I'm turning 65," they're going to say, "Go to Jeremy. He bought me a steak dinner."
You don't have to sell anything. You can literally just buy the dinner, bring 25 people in and spend $600 on dinner. You probably paid for that dinner by not selling anything, just by strengthening the relationship so the next guy doesn't go in and sell him a new med stuff for $5 less, and you protected your residuals. I mean, how many $250, $300 clients do you have to protect to pay for a dinner?
That was funny. We've been documenting a little bit of our initial journey in the Turning 65 seminars, and people kept seeing the room and the meal we were buying, and they were saying things like, they were saying, this must be expensive. I don't know. And I'm talking like getting 24 people in there, and it was like, it's not, there's no alcohol, in these, the ones we were doing. So you're talking about maybe a $350 bill, 400, 500, these are not massive bills to think about. One med sup, from one of those people in the room that's on the books is paying for that meal, and especially with these client appreciation, when it doesn't cost a lot in marketing to get them there, you're talking about 100 mailers, Yeah, that's insane. So even on the Turning 65, it might cost us $1,500, $2,000 in mailers to get them in. But even then, I have to sell 4 or 5 apps for me to get my return on investment. So people have to stop thinking oh, it must be expensive. I just think about it in numbers of apps. How much is my average app paying me? How many of those I got to get to pay for it? So I get 25 people in the room, I got to sell 4 apps to break even. If you can't do that, you're in the wrong business. So.
Yeah, again, the cost, the profit part, it's not even a factor. It's so profitable that you really don't even think about it or care about it. You know, again, I've got agents that have made over $100,000 in one 25-person client appreciation seminar. That's not the average, you know, that's not the norm, that's the high. But the money really just doesn't matter, because in our business, you can go sell one policy out of 25 people and all the things you can do to pay for the cost of it. And they're all going to set, 95% of the people who come to a client appreciation appointment or seminar will set appointments with you, meet with you for an hour in the next 3 days, 95% of them. And the closing ratio is about 80% on anything you put in client. Because they're your clients, they already trust you. Yeah.
Though we haven't done one in the last year, we do client events also, and we do the same thing, except we make them a bring a friend event. So everybody bring a friend with you, and now you've got 25 clients in the room and 25 referrals. So that's pretty good. Those work well for us too.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard of that. Bring a friend. All right. Time? All right, guys. Everybody, give these guys a round of applause. Time to train like a guru. Go Guru University is an ever-expanding, cutting-edge, interactive training platform with live weekly coaching calls constructed to train agents efficiently and compliantly. Go Guru University offers a library of training modules explaining Medicare A to Z, face-to-face and telesales training, SEO and other marketing, and much more. Visit goguru.university to schedule your one-on-one demo today.